Test, test, test.
Hey, here we are, the Lone Star Sports Show right here on the Lone Star Sports Network. All things sports, all things Texas right here on Tuesday. In North Texas, getting it in where it is. Got my main man, Tom Inman, right back here with me, our guest co-host right now, and going with show number 3 for you, or show,
Yes,
number,
sir.
show number 3.
Number 3, yep.
3's a charm. Getting a little comfort zone of being in here, getting in and getting comfortable. We have a great show. The show before the show. It's kind of like the meeting before the meeting. The show before the show can be a little interesting too. But yeah, we got a lot of things to talk about. Major League Baseball, all the things that are going on with the Rangers and with the Astros and injuries. Long season, but they're roughly 60 games into 160. It's got about 100 games left.
Yeah, long time.
Long time. Yeah, long time. A long hot summer. Dog days of summer will be coming in the fall. That's one of the biggest questions are, can they pick a choice, a time to make a run? They got 2 problems there. We're going to let you talk about it a little bit, but one of them is they're 13 and a half games behind. Today's show is brought to you by FastMallSports.com. Go take a look at FastMallSports.com and see how they are leading basketball into the 21st century through the vehicle of technology. Well, here on the Lone Star Sports Show, Major League Baseball, Rangers, Astros. Obviously, there's a crazy thing going on, and the Astros are holding their own, but they're not hot. Do you need to be hot right now? You know, if Ranger Royce was still around, he would say that, you know, right now you just need to be playing 500 ball and just cruising right there and staying where you need to be and prepared to, you know, pick your spot out and get everybody healthy and make your run. Now, the difference is, and I'm going to talk from the zip code of the 77 zip code in the south out of the Bayou City. The difference you see in the situation is Astros just won the World Series. They're champs. They don't have any trouble getting butts in the seats.
Right.
At stadium there. You got Minute Maid there that's drawing them in, standing in. You got great ball. One of these times I take you would love that. That's kind of got that old Chicago.
I'd like to see it. I've heard good things about that. My cousins live in Houston. They love
sitting right. That's almost better than going to the game.
Right.
Yeah, it's like right there getting the feel. It's like tailgating at a bar. I mean, it's literally you walk out of the door and go 100 feet and walk right into a bar that has these garage doors and everything lifts
I went
up.
to a bar and a baseball game broke out.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's a good way of looking at it. But so there's no trouble. There's no trouble there. Yeah, well, they like to repeat. Yeah, they want to be champs again. Yeah, they have the ability to be champs again.
Right.
But what problem do the Rangers have at 13.5, other than being 13.5 games behind?
Number one is you got the public relations side, because you got 160 games, and I've always heard people say that you break the season into 8 20-game segments, basically. You know, and if you can be good in 5 of those 8 or 6 of those 8, it's fine. You can have a couple, 2 or 3 of those bad periods, but the problem is you're burying yourself so deep that it mathematically becomes difficult. And the biggest problem is you can't sell tickets. Because like you said, you'll sell tickets in Houston for a year and a half, 2 years, just on the momentum of having won the championship.
That's correct. And having a reasonably competitive team at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm not bad-mouthing baseball, but baseball is clearly, out of the 4 team sports in America, it's third and a half. I mean, baseball and basketball are most important, and I mean, football and basketball are most
Baseball
important.
probably.
Baseball and hockey.
Baseball may have the most loyal fans.
Right, but there's not a lot of them, and if they turn on you, like let's just say, just hypothetically, let's say you have,
I mean, loyalty works both ways.
Right.
It can work positive and negative, going away from you.
Well, it frustrates me as a resident of Arlington, because we gave $156 million to a rich man to build a stadium, and nobody gave money to Robert Kraft or Stan Greinke to build their stadiums. Now we're turning back around, and we're giving a new stadium to. They got a 9-year-old stadium. You can't put a roof on that existing stadium. And the bottom line, it all comes down to it's selective development. Because Jerry Jones is really funny. There's a funny story that kind of off the cuff, but they were giving Jerry Jones a hard time about the fact that his stadium faces east and west. And they said, why'd you set it up in such a way that your receivers had to look back into the sun? He said, there's no problem here. Yes, there is. Your receivers say they can't see because of the sun. So they talked about, why don't you put up some drapes? And I'm not going to do that. He said, and then one of his people who worked for the franchise said, well, you guys just don't really realize what we're doing. What we're going to do is we're going to develop Arlington, and we're going to build it up. So basically what they were implying was all that stuff on Collins was going to be high enough to take out the setting sun. They've been there for 8 years, and you still got no-tell motels. You got crackheads walking up and down the street. You've got abandoned automobile shops. It's embarrassing, man.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, and I knew you were a resident of Arlington, and obviously you live right there with the UTA Mavericks, not even just a few blocks away. And but I never had discussed just the overall economic development of Arlington and how that was really going. I know what the intentions are and have been, and with Cowboys being the Cowboys, and Rangers sitting right there. Winning doesn't hurt, at the same time. And so when does this situation flatline? Okay, right now you're sitting in there. The Athletics, if you go look at the history of it, the Athletics have owned the Rangers.
Right.
And if you go and look at the series and the situation over the last 2 or 3 years out in Oakland, it's really bad. And they do a little bit better here. So the Rangers are sitting there right now with the next 6 games against their interstate rivalry, and there's nothing more powerful or potent in the state of Texas than the Dallas-Houston rivalry.
Absolutely.
You can't get around. I don't care if you want to shoot marbles. It is a crazy, crazy deal. Plenty national corporations, plenty of people have struggled with being able to understand how do you manage it, and this actually turns it into North Texas, South Texas.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I grew up in Chicago, where there's 2 teams in one city but no second city. So the Cubs-Sox game,
right?
So that was the series that flipped the season.
Yeah,
you could have a really bad year. The Sox, right now the Sox stink. They're 11 and a half games out, right? And if they come out and beat the Cubs 3 in a row, man, I'm happy to be in last place because I beat you, and that's what matters. It's the same sort of thing you're talking about.
Yeah, it's exactly what you're talking about. So I mean, right now, it's a big starting today, from today, all the way through Sunday, before the Rangers go back on the road. They've got 6 home games in a row.
They need to go 4-2, 5-1, 6-0. They can't go 3-3, 2-4.
I think 3-3, and kind of the right 3-3. They need 3-3 might not do it. I think they need, out of 4 games with the Astros, they need to split with the Astros. That's 2. Can they win 1 with the Athletics? That's 3. That's the 3 I'm looking for. Right. I think anything worse than that starts the ball rolling, or the big boulder, the rock slide.
Well, I don't care what anyone says. You're already doubting yourself. You're 13 and a half games out. Now, I'm not saying that.
Now here's the thing. Now the whole deal is the Rangers have a lot of injuries right now.
Right.
So with that being the case, you're in a situation there where now there's hope in saying when we get all our guys healthy.
Right.
So that you have that. So I mean, there are a lot of potential things to hold on to in Arlington, Texas right now, here in North Texas. But put it this way, right here, you go 0-6. It ain't gonna be pretty.
No. Well, and then all comes down to one thing is you want to tell people don't panic because it's a long season. But the longer the season goes on and the more that you're not performing, the more you should be panicking because there's less games left.
Well, I mean, and that's always the case. That's a human thing. I encounter this with players and player evaluation. Well, I shouldn't do that as a kid. I won't bring it up. But there was a certain young player that you're very familiar with, and you think about what I thought about him when I used to come see you when he was in the 8th grade, coming to you as a 9th grader, and then you stop and look at where it is now, you still question, hey, the kid's going to be a Division I prospect. But when you were looking at him young. So my point being is, the more time goes and the closer the door, the window, it takes just as much time for on the front end of a 3-4 year window, or the span of a duration. It takes as much time for that to go by then. It's just that when it gets down to the nitty gritty, and in this case, as we start to close in on in a 160 game season, when you start getting in the 80s and the 90s, things start tightening up. There's no difference in the last 2 minutes of a game. The last 2 minutes of a game don't last any longer, other than stop clock or whatever, than the first 2 minutes of the game.
Right.
But things get a whole lot tighter.
Right.
You know what I mean? In the last 2 minutes of the game.
Well, and that's where you're at with the baseball season. At some point in time, you get to the All-Star break, and then you got 80 games left. And then all of a sudden, you look down and say, you got 40 left. And then all of a sudden, you start saying, well, we're mathematically eliminated, or we have to do X.
And when we kick that mathematical thing, we pull a calculator out, you if you don't have the right momentum, when we start really counting the mathematical possibility of the playoffs and what that number is, if you're not healthy and you don't have momentum, it's not a good thing.
But I will say one thing: there's also been a lot of situations where teams peaked out too soon. You know what I'm saying? It's not like in baseball. It doesn't matter if you're good in April, May, and June. It matters if you're good in October. You know, in basketball, it doesn't matter if you're good in November, December. It matters if you're good in April and May.
Right.
Kind of thing. So I mean, you don't want to peak too soon.
Yeah. I think we got a caller coming in here. See what he's talking about. We're not talking about basketball. Let's see exactly what he's got on his mind. Chris Walker, University of California at Berkeley. What's going on? Hey, you live on the Lone Star Sports Show.
Oh, what's up, man? My bad. I forgot y'all was working right now. Sorry about that.
I know.
I was talking the guy in the state of Texas with the number one inside track on everything going on at East Texas. Besides my boy, the cheat sheet, and had some information. But
well, we're not gonna break it publicly right now. Can we break it publicly, or we break it after 8?
Oh no. They ain't that kind of news. We gotta keep it on the low. Okay. How y'all doing on the show? What's up?
Doing good. I got somebody on. Chris Walker, Tom Inman, Plano High School. Never recruited any of your guys?
I'm not sure if we ever met, Coach. I used to coach at Plano a long time and just finished up at Grand Prairie, so I don't think I've ever met you. Where all of you coach besides Cal Berkeley?
Coach, I'm gonna date myself, but I've been at Villanova, Vanderbilt, New Mexico, Texas Tech,
okay,
Pepperdine, Loyal. I've been all over the place. So
who'd you work with at Tech? Who's your head coach at Tech?
Head coach at Tech. I was a head coach for a year, and Billy Gillespie was a year before me.
Okay. You got caught up in that transition. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you never recruited any of my players, but I know who you are. I
mean, he had Joe Foltz. Remember Joe Foltz played in the Big East? Right. Yeah, he had Joe Foltz.
I had John Robertson to play point guard at Tech also. The point guard that played for Knight out there later.
You know, I know exactly who you are. I know exactly who you are.
Cool. That's a good deal. I thought you might have been called in to defend the Oakland A's against the Rangers tonight here in Texas.
Now, Oakland A's now, we don't need to start that, but I just got one thing to say. Hey, Coach, do not let Alan Branch torment you over there trying to hate on LeBron. I know you're a LeBron fan, Coach, because you appreciate good basketball players.
Hey, time out,
time to go to break.
Hold on. I need a 30 timeout here, Chris. Okay, I'm 55 years old. I'm 17 days younger than Michael Jordan, and I grew up in Chicago. LeBron's the best player available right now, but he ain't shit compared to Jordan. Nothing, not even close.
Hey,
he's in a 2-horse race. He's third place.
Hey, Brad, listen. You know,
I know how to pick him. That's right. Go ahead.
I'm not going to debate Coach because he's over there playing without a shot clock. But I'm going to make sure.
he and Ronnie Courtney have both retired in the same year.
Right?
Yeah, both of those guys are retired.
Play without shot clocks, but we'll talk about. Hey, you guys have a good. I'm gonna set up and listen, Coach. Good talking to you, man.
Okay.
All right, Coach. Thanks.
Sounds good. Going to break. Lone Star Sports Show right here. All things sports, all things Texas. This particular segment was brought to you by Harlem Hotels Development Investment, located there in the Bayou City in Houston, Texas. Go take a look at HardhamHotels.com and take a listen right now and hear more about the whole process where you can put your money where you sleep. Back in 180 seconds with more Lone Star Sports Show.
Hardham Hotels. Make money where you and millions of others spend money. Hardham Hotels Investment and Development Group's primary disciplines include hotel acquisitions, hotel development, hotel project management, as well as asset and partnership management. At Hardham Hotels, we invest in upscale focused service and extended stay hotel properties, mainly in Texas and other major urban markets. We are hotel owners, developers, investors, and asset managers persistent in our pursuit of successful ventures and passionate about our products. We provide nationally branded investment opportunities, including Hilton, Marriott, and Hyatt hotel franchises. Hardham Hotels strategically places the right product in the right location for the right customer. Get started with us today. Visit us online at www.hardhamhotels.com. Hardham Hotels, put your money where you sleep.
Hey, here we are back here in the second segment of the Lone Star Sports Show right here on the Lone Star Sports Network. Today's show is brought to you by FastSmallSports.com. Go take a look and see how Fast Small Sports is leading basketball into the 21st century through the vehicle of technology. It's plenty going on in sports, baseball thing. Got an angle. Texas is Rangers obviously have some challenges before them. Astros, and that whole repeat thing, they got the firepower to do it. They can come back and do it. We, like I say, in the fall when it starts cooling off, we get a lot more intense on what's going on and bring you some more interesting reports. But right now, everything is mathematically still in a decent place for Texas. It's a situation there in Chicago. You a White Sox or Blue Sox? What y'all have up there? Cub fan or what are you?
I'm going to be delicate here. I'm a Sox fan from the top of my nasty
what is
gray hair to the bottom of my...
Sox in the south side?
And it's all real geographical. If you grew up south of Madison Street, you're probably a Sox fan. And if you're not, you get abused. And if you grew up north of Madison Street, you're a Cubs fan. And if you're not, you get abused.
Right.
It's pretty
Now, which one's got the beautiful...
Wrigley's got the beautiful. Our stadium is garbage.
Yeah,
the whole south side is garbage. But
so the Cubs are in the north.
Oh, Wrigley's beautiful.
Wrigley's Field.
Wrigley Field is absolutely gorgeous.
It's one to me. I think one of the most historical athletic facilities in the country with everything that's there. But right now, man, in the middle of all this NBA playoffs, draft coming up, NBA finals, I should say, draft coming up. NFL is busy, before we get into just really chopping up, we're right up on top of your mandatory deadline where everybody has to show up for mini camp. I think that deadline on the Cowboys, I think, had a situation where they for everybody mandatory mini camp June 12th. So we're approaching that. We haven't quite gotten to it yet. Still in some OTA type, organized team activity type situations going on, which have been going on May 22nd. We talked about that earlier. I think we actually had somebody on, one of the workout guys or whatever, going through after the post-draft stuff and getting guys where they need to be in that process. But now it's getting down to a little bit more of the mandatory mini camp. That's when guys start, so June the 12th, so guys are still a little bit outside of that, but we're pressing hard toward that. But in the middle of that, before we kind of get into the whole social, political thing that we all know that's going on right now, and is real right on the front cutting edge of, no matter if you're watching CNN or if you're watching ESPN,
you see it.
You're talking about it, and there's so many different angles to talk about it, and the weirdest thing to me that's kind of strange, and like I say, Lady Life is the only one that's still here that can remember exactly when the Colin Kaepernick took the knee and what went on with him and the stance that I took. And, sometimes I'll stop and wonder, why did I think what I thought, even though what I thought was true and we are where we are? I thought that's what it was going to be, just everything that we're seeing right now.
Well, the answer is you're cynical because you grew up in the 60s and 70s and you know how things work.
That's a good point. Because it definitely has to do with the era in which I grew up in.
Oh, there's no doubt.
And the perspective and experiences of what have I experienced.
Well, and when I talk to young people and everything, I told them, I said, I don't think everything is messed up today, but everything's not fixed up today. It's a process.
And I look at it. I look at it as different. Are young people naive, or what would you call the fact that, or sometimes I think young people look at some certain things and say, well, that's not fixable, let's keep it moving.
Or they'll say it's not broken, so why worry about fixing it? Like, a good example is this. Every February in class, I would have us do a civil rights paper. Mm-hmm. And I would ask them, I said, do you not understand that civil rights has been an ongoing thing? It's been going on from, you could make the argument back in the late 1800s, but certainly in the mid 1900s. And at the end of the day, civil rights is an ongoing thing. It's never going to get fixed. But what I don't like right now is I feel like we're going backwards.
Well, and that, you always feel guilty being an older generation when you're saying it about, and you see it going backwards. But when you can really date it, Ani, how do you? You're a millennial through and through. Ladies like the introductory area of millennials, when millennial first became a nice word. How do you feel that you all see history and the political nature is it a mirage or a misconception when older guys, and I say older, 40 and over, 45 and over, feel like millennials are totally out of touch with the reality of the social, economic, political nature, or you feel like you have so many tools that you don't have to pay attention to history and what has transpired and where we are now?
I think the second part where you said so many tools that you don't have to pay attention.
Well, can I interrupt for a second? One of the things
That's not an interruption. Go ahead.
One thing I've noticed with younger folks is they'll sit there and said, one of the reasons I make them do this civil rights papers, I say, what you guys don't realize is the fact that we can, like, do you guys even think twice about being involved in a mixed couple? Of course not. How many of you guys are, have family members that are mixed race? A whole bunch of kids, right? But you think this is how it's always been. It's not. And so, and I'm not so sure that sometimes us old people, if we're not careful, we almost hang on to the racism. Maybe we need to let go a little, and maybe they need to grab on a little bit, because what they'll tell you.
That's actually a great point, Tom. I never thought about it like that. We do hold on because we experience certain things, and I don't know if we're holding on or we just skeptical.
I think it's cynicism, it's skepticism, it's a whole bunch of different things. But at the end of the day, I do think that sometimes we got to be a little bit careful that we don't become grumpy old men who say, "Don't step on my grass" and turn the music down. And on the other hand, I think the reason I made him do the civil rights paper was I said, "Look, I've got an African wife, and I walk down the street, no one looks at me twice, but that's because a lot of people paid a price to
allow
put
that
those
to be
paving stones to let me walk on."
Right.
You're walking on a really smooth road,
Yeah,
but you
walk-
don't know who paved that road.
That's correct.
And I think that's where I'm a little bit offended because.
Well, I mean, Jack Johnson, for example, I know we're going way back,
Right.
so half our listeners probably don't even know who Jack Johnson is, was prosecuted and had to leave the country and went to Europe
Right.
because of interracial marriage that he had. And he was the world champ.
Right.
Well,
and I think sometimes that people, let's say under 30 roughly, they tend to put their blinders on and they don't attribute things to racism, where I think sometimes us older people kind of do. And I'm not sure who's right and who's wrong. I think they're a little wrong for forgetting about history, and I think sometimes we're a little wrong for hanging on to it too much. Because if we're not careful, we got to all admit, sometimes we get pissed off about things and we hang on to it.
Lady Life, you sit right in the middle of all of this. I think you got a good, clean look at both sides of it. Get the mic over there to her. Anything that you have to say. I mean, you've been really good from a political standpoint. You hear everything that's being said. What's your take on what's percent, your perception? Is there any truth? Do we way off mark, or we have no clue? Because you kind of stand in the middle looking both ways.
Yeah, I think as far as in terms of generational gap, you guys lived through a certain era, where civil rights was a really, really big deal from, the Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and any, I can't think of the guy's last name. His name is John. He's still, working on fighting some stuff. As a younger generation, where we are now, a lot of it has to do with education. What we get in public education and what we get from our family, friends, or, being able to listen to older people. And there's a lot of stuff being erased out of the books or not being put in the books. And then there's this expectation that we should just know and we should understand when a lot of that stuff isn't taught. And what you do get taught is the same, let's say, 5 or 10 Black history heroes, and it is a very watered down version because it's such a sensitive subject.
Right.
So unless you do your due diligence to go back and find out more information, then you are kind of lost in the sauce. And like Tom said, then the idea about mixed race couples and any kind of disparities against African Americans is starting to get lost in translation as we go on. And some people are sweeping it under the rug. Some people would rather not talk about it. And some people are just simply naive or uneducated about it.
You spent all the years, what you spent, 30 years in education?
Yeah.
30 years in education. I don't want to say how much responsibility you take to that. How much do you feel that you saw that evolve from coming here in the 80s to DISD?
Significant. I think there's a lack of social consciousness a little bit. I think that it's really easy to think that because people don't care about, say, mixed couples, that they never cared about mixed couples. People used to die over it.
Yeah.
Jack Johnson had to leave the country over it.
Right.
And I think sometimes we fluff it all. And then I think if we're not kind of careful, or if the young people aren't careful, they fluff us a little bit. Oh, that's just another one of them old grumpy old.
Old
No,
fogey type things, right.
no. Hold on a second. Don't blame the compass for. Or don't blame the messenger for the message.
Right.
And the message is that racism is alive and well. And I don't think I don't know if it's worse or better. I don't know. What's disappointing is you think over time it would sooner or later would dissipate, because what we realize we have more in common than we don't have in common.
Well, where did it dissipate in history? Where has it ever dissipated? Everything
Never.
that the Jews went through. So it's never, the differences in human beings has never dissipated. And that brings us around to where we are before we go to the break. We're chiming in and coming right down to where we are in the NFL right now. And, the protests started, and that's one of the things that has always blown me away. We're talking about everything but the reason for protesting. It's like if the factory workers in Chicago are protesting, they're protesting for wages, for lunch, for better working conditions. Whenever there's a protest or any type of a picket line or anything of that nature, the reasons why are always listed. They want better working conditions. They want less hours. They want this. They want that. There's a reason of what the intent is, and the problem that I have is not with what's going on in the NFL, but the fact that it's being hijacked to be manipulated, like your words always say, to work any kind of political leverage, if you will, from the White House and what they're doing there to the piece. And now it's all turned into it. You got sports, which we know the power of sports, and we know the power of politics, all laying down right here in the middle of the trench. But the real facts and issues that need to be addressed are not being looked at. And now we have a president like Trump who has come in. And this is the thing. When we come back, we're going to talk about why is it that guys sell out? Why do guys sell out? Who sells out and who doesn't sell out? What are the costs of selling out? What are you selling out? What's going on in the NFL now? There's some selling out going on right now. And what's the whole deal, to look at it? So some people are human martyrs and some people are sellouts. Does that make one bad and the other one good? Hey, when we come back in the next segment of the Lone Star Sports Show right here on the Lone Star Sports Network, you got Tom Inman, Alan Branch, Lady Life, and Under the Prince, all breaking it down here, giving it to you like it really and truly is. Today's show is brought to you by FastSmallSports.com. This particular segment was brought to you by Fast Recruit. Be back in 180 seconds with more Lone Star Sports Show.
Guy's son plays football up in Canada. They play a lot on Sundays.
wheeled up. Hey, here we are back here at the Lone Star Sports Show right here on the Lone Star Sports Network. Tom Inman, Alan Branch, Lady Life, and Ani the Prince. Blue Money giving it to you like it is. All things sports, all things Texas. Sitting here in the middle of a debate, we said we came back. We talk about sellouts and human martyrs. Obviously, one extreme end from the other, if you will. You know, people are looked at as sellouts when their professional livelihood could be endangered, and so they choose to look the other way or keep their mouth closed.
The best example, in my opinion, of the sellouts is you'll never make me believe that there are 32 NFL owners, and every single one of them is a far right-wing Republican flag waving. There's got to be someone out there who has a social conscience. Mm-hmm. There's got to be someone out there who says to themselves, I don't like the way it's going. But how do you get to be part of the Billionaire Boys Club? You get to be part of the Billionaire Boys Club by playing ball, not by being an outlier.
You know, you're exactly right. You know, I can remember some of the things that went on with some of the country club situations, and some situations that I've been in where I've had white males to tell me, look, Branch, I don't think it's right, but you know, that's just the way it is, or I can't afford to fight it, or it's not a situation. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. Let me use myself for example. I always like, there are certain political things that I know to be a fact. There's certain situations I go on that happen that I know in the world of basketball that I would never say in the interest of being politically correct on this show. A lot of people probably would like for me to, but you know, I may lose 20 subscribers, or I may get blackballed out of a particular opportunity just for the fact of what the truth is. So the truth may set you free, but it may also
get you fired. Yeah.
It might get you fired along the way, right? Yeah, and that's what it really comes down to. But you know, you look at this situation right here, and you know, we're talking about politics and sports here, and we're talking about this situation with the NFL. You got 32 billionaire guys, so you know you have to respect the golden rule. And the golden rule says,
as the golden rules.
Yeah, right. I mean, we're in a capitalistic society, and that's what makes things go. That's what makes the wheels turn across the process. And everybody wants to be a part. You know, we talk about social economics. Let's just talk about economics and leave the social side and political side out. Everybody wants to eat, and everybody wants to eat when they want to eat. And as the old saying goes, most people want to be cool when it's hot and warm when it's cold and full. And we got various versions and levels of that, whether that's in a 3,000 square foot home or a 30,000 square foot home.
Right.
It's still the same concept of how we want to live. So we're not going to endanger the education of people in our families, the welfare of our families, fighting the golden rule.
Well, you know, being the outlier owner is almost like being the police officer who believes in telling the truth when everyone else is standing behind the thin line.
Well, that's another very good point. And you know, it's like a cop he's sworn to allegiance to the blue and the badge, and knows something is not right, but can he afford to continuously go in that locker room after he has ratted out something that's not right? And that's the contamination that we see all the way across the board. So my question is, okay, how do you manage all of that? You know, how does the NFL, how do players manage it? How do you manage the situation? How do we manage it as an America where we know this is MO for society?
Well, I'd like to know what the big difference between basketball and football is. Basketball's got a rule. Basketball handles it. There's not a problem. And you can make the cynical argument that basketball is a blacker game than football is, or whatever, or it's more urban, or the fans are more. I don't give a damn about none of that.
Well, I'm going to tell you exactly what the difference is. The basketball guys were smarter than the football guys.
And they've got some backbone. Because let's talk about Roger Goodell, the absolute spineless person. If he has children, he definitely adopted them. cut that because he has no spine, he has no cojones whatsoever.
But
he
Tom,
caves in.
he got a $40 million reason of why he has no spine.
Oh, yeah, well, okay,
You can check that
no.
on the I think he has a $40 million.
Oh, it's more than that. It's 45.
Yeah.
No, I grant you that he's protecting his best interest, but all that makes him a high price prostitute.
Well, I mean, if you want to look at it like that, and in that perspective, we all are, in some form or fashion. You didn't fight anything at Grand Prairie ISD that you felt like that had the potential to get you fired. Alan Branch doesn't fight anything against the NCAA that may get me banned as a NCAA certified basketball scout. So what it really comes down to is, what kind of world are we living in?
A controlled world that knows how to package the product to get the end result you want.
That's a decent way of saying it. And the deal that you look at, and this is, to me, this is where America fails and has failed for a long time. We think, and this is what I think democracy is kind of set up and operate. We think that the politicians are the people that are put in position to be able to voice our interests about the truth and reality, and in turn they get bought too.
Well, that's on the assumption you trust that they're going to actually do what they said they're going to do. I've told people, I grew up in Chicago where dead people vote. My grandfather registered dead people. And I told people, I said, I would love to be able to put an LCD panel, 4x6, on the forehead of every politician. And what happens on the LCD panel, it shows what you voted right next to what you said you were going to vote. So it's like a accountability check.
The conscious, right.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, ask yourself, how on God's green earth is lobbying legal? Back in the 1950s, they had a payola scandal. If guys were taking $50 to play a song on the radio, and they arrested him and sent him to prison over this.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
The payola scandal. Yet we can go to a politician and we can quote unquote influence his vote. And here's another crazy thing: you and I can give $2,500 a piece as an individual person, right, to influence politics. But you and I can form a pack called Alan and Tom Screw the World, and we could take $8 billion and we could go be the Koch brothers, and we can go be Donald Trump, because at the end of the day, this whole country is skewed in the favor of money.
Yep, which has come back around to the golden rule.
He has the golden rules, right?
So is democracy? I'll say something else. Good night for Lady Life. She's our political activist around here. Is democracy? How is democracy lining up with the golden rule? How is it doing? He who has the goal makes the rules.
Well, I definitely agree with that. If you have the goal, you make the rules. I know that a lot of people like to think that America is a democracy. I believe that is a facade. And it is something to kind of keep us all in line to a certain extent. And I won't get too deep off into why I think that. But yeah, I do definitely believe that in the golden rule. So democracy could be a more of a camouflage or something that just entertains us to people with the goal make the rules. It sounds good. Democracy sounds great. This we don't really practice that on a regular basis. Yeah.
And there are people out there that would say, "Oh man, you're nuts, man. We all vote and we got these people in there do this and do that." And this whole process of working, we're a democratic deal. We're not communist. We're not dictatorship. We're not all these other different forms of what goes on, socialism and all these other forms of government. And this is America's democracy. What do you mean it's not democracy?
I'll say for as long as I've been old enough to pay attention to what's going on with the voting process, it seems like every election there's been some sort of issue, whether it was couldn't figure out how many votes we had in Florida or whatever was going on with George Bush, up into even this recent stuff with Donald Trump and supposedly the Russians. It's always something going on behind the scenes, supposedly, and that they never really have 100% verified.
And having said all that, thank you very much, lady. Having said all of that, and I know Lady stays up on top of this stuff. That's why I bring in. She's like our resident political expert. But with a bunch of other, jock goose.
I was trying to find I watched a video today, a documentary on Netflix. I can't find the name of it. And I'm sorry. I was watching a Netflix documentary, and on the documentary they were talking about basically the facade of the American justice system. They're talking about like how do you survive in prison. They talked about all the different things like if you ever get arrested, do this.
No. It's
fascinating.
It's
survival kit for prison or something. Like
survival kit.
Let me see if I can find this.
Right.
Because what they talked about was they said, look, if you're rich and white versus poor and black, rich and white wins. But if you're rich and black versus poor and white, rich and black wins. It's the money. It's not the color skin. Now, is there a disparity in how many of the black people have the money to get the good lawyer? Yeah, of course. That's the essence of the problem.
But we still got a golden rule thing going on.
Yeah, he's got the gold rules.
Yeah.
One of the guys in that documentary got accused of murdering his mother, sat in prison for 20 years. When his father died,
I watched it. He's a Chicago deal.
Yeah,
I watched the
he
story.
got $184,000 from his dad's life insurance, and that's what allowed him to go out and buy the private investigator to go out and find out that he never did
I
it.
know that part, right?
Right,
But
if he
he's
ever
actually a Wrigley Field guy.
Yeah, but without $184,000, his butt's still in prison. Right? He had to buy his freedom.
Wow. And I think that brings the whole thing right back around. 32 billionaire guys, do they win against the other 3,000 millionaires? Which one is more powerful, 32 billionaires or the 3,000 millionaires?
The way I see it right now, that's pretty obvious. Plan A.
Yeah,
Because
that's what we're looking at.
Because we have silenced the millionaires. We've taken away their First Amendment right to feel comfortable. I told my wife, I said, the number one thing, she told me something one day. She said, Tom, when you were in Africa and you called 911, there is no 911. She goes, if you call the police might come and they might help the criminals rape you. See, so, whether you like it or not, it's not perfect, but it's still better than what you got. And that stinks because I don't like what we have. Right now, it's not good enough, but it is better than a lot of countries have.
When we come back from the break in another 180 seconds here, today's show is brought to you by Fast Small Sports. We're going to take a look at, how does this go about and how does this thing come out? We saw it coming right here at the Lonestar Sports Show, and here we are roughly, 8 months down the road in the situation. I guess longer than that, huh? Well, actually, more like 20 months, down the road. That was in 2016. When that was identified in December of 2016 when that first came about. Wow, time flies. Well, it's flying on us right now. We'll be back in 180 seconds with more of the Lonestar Sports Show. This particular segment was brought to you by Hartem Hotels. Hartem Hotels is located in Houston, Texas, in the Bayou City, where you can learn how you can put your money where it sleeps and come out on the winning side of things. Take a listen now to this piece or go take a look at HartemHotels.com. Back in 180 seconds with more Lonestar Sports Show. Hey, here we are back here at the Lonestar Sports Show, giving it to you like it is, all things sports, all things Texas, right here at the Lonestar Sports Network. Tom Emmon, Alan Branch, Lady Life, and Ani the Prince, breaking it down, taking a look at it. Here we are in the middle of the stack. I think one of the pieces that we broke into right before we went to the break is there are roughly 32 teams, and 32 teams with an average number of 50. And so when we'll go to 30 to 1,500. I said 3,000. That was a little high. So the question is, which one is more powerful? 1,500 millionaires, roughly 1,500, 1,600 probably a better number, or we know 32 billionaires.
Well, I mean,
right now we said 32 billionaires are winning the deal.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with that. But, it kind of makes me wonder. I've always heard the story about a guy named, I think his name is Dick DiVenzio. He's an Italian point guard from Duke who's been trying to coordinate the Final Four players to get him to go out on a walkout, basically strike. And he's got a good point. What would happen if Saturday morning on a Final Four, 4 times 13 players got up and said, we ain't playing? But so my point to extend it to the NFL is, what if they just didn't play?
Well, that's the martyr side of it. If they don't pay, they don't. If you don't play, we don't pay.
Well, to this day, I still can't understand how on earth an NFL person can use the word contract without just giggling. I mean, it's not a contract.
Yeah,
it's
when
a working agreement.
When is a contract not a contract in the NFL?
When you're in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
We're going to give you whatever we want to give you, and whenever we're tired of you, we'll just cut you and get rid of you.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's not a contract.
Right. And the thing is, and this is going to be real. It's going to sound naive or sound sarcastic. I'm not sure how you're going to take what I'm about to say. Do we live in an America where if the 32 billionaire guys stood up for what these guys, social injustices that the guys have a problem with, that's going to kill their bottom line?
That's my point about I don't think that anything would kill their bottom line. If the owners made their players happy instead of Trump and Goodell happy, I don't think they'd have any problem. I don't see why there'd be a problem. But if the players just decided one day we're not going to play, I just like to see what happened. I mean, I know that's a hell of a risk. That's Colin Kaepernick on steroids. You're asking the whole league to walk.
Yeah, it's not one guy to walk. You're asking
but what would happen
1,600 to walk.
What would you do on Sunday if Jerry Jones had no gladiators to walk out there? Because football. Let's be honest, football is about that far away from the gladiators. The only thing we have to do is go thumbs down. Let's kill them because they didn't make the tackle.
Right. Yeah.
That's all we got to do.
That's about right. He didn't make the touchdown. He slipped or he dropped the ball. And
we got to get rid of him.
Turn the lines loose.
Got to get rid of him.
It's and the thing is, and this is what I keep coming back to, and that's why I keep talking about this. What do you would say, Lady Life? You've been here from the beginning in 20 months. I probably have talked about this subject 4 times. Yeah, maybe closer to 6 or 7. And all I'm saying is why can't for just one day let's talk about what the problem is? If we just address the problem for one day, what is it that we could? I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to ask Lady. She's pretty sharp on us. What could you possibly do that would allow? Because the problem that I have is they won't even enlighten the fact that these guys are not non-American, unpatriotic guys. These are guys that have people that have died in the war, fought in wars, and done this. Alan Branch is not unpatriotic. Alan Branch, nothing to be bragging about. I guess my grandfather wouldn't think so. My grandfather had more grandsons to fight in the Vietnam War than anybody else in the state of Texas.
Really?
Yeah. And so, my father-in-law, we got the flag folded up in there. So it's not, we appreciate America, love America, patriotic to the bone. But that still doesn't make what's wrong right.
Well, but patriotic involves the ability to be able to say what people don't want to hear, the uncomfortable truths of life.
It's no different than you said a few days ago when we first show you may have been on, the guy that you knew that went over and fought and they lost his leg. He went over and lost his leg for us to have the right to voice our opinion.
To kneel or stand.
Kneel or stand, right.
And here's what bothers me.
And it's being turned around. How can they be so successful turning this around?
Well,
and we're going to go to the NBA after this.
How blind are people when you can take a guy, a 72-year-old fat guy with orange hair, and he 5 times tapped out of the military because he had bone spurs. But now you want to be the arbiter of what's patriotic? Who died and left you in charge?
But obviously, it's not that he died. Anybody died and left him in charge. He's leading. One thing I know about the people that get elected and the people that stay in office and stay in power for a long time, they are following the marching orders of the people with the gold. Now, I do know that about America. If I don't know anything else, you don't stay in politics if you're not making the people with the money happy.
Right, and then the other thing that I can't stand, I have a friend of mine, Brian Brockman. He might be even watching the show. We probably agree on 95% of all things, but in the last year or so, he's not a Trump fan, but he buys into that bullshit a little bit more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
And what I told him, I said, what bothers me the most is we're very highly intelligent people. Mm-hmm. Yet when they throw a piece of red meat between me and you, we act just like those dumbass, uneducated dogs, and we fight each other for that piece of red meat. Mm-hmm. You and I are smart enough to know that both of us are right and both of us are wrong, and that piece of red meat is tainted because it's not pure. They always throw it out there because really what happens is they insult our intelligence because they think we're stupid. Mm-hmm. They throw out a very volatile issue and they just watch us fight over it. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, nothing about the protest has ever been about patriotism. He hijacked that narrative because that was convenient to his base. Well, are you going to govern the base or are you going to govern our country? Well, don't get me going because he's holding us hostage.
Yeah, and that's the whole deal. And only reason I continuously talk about this is to try to bring some level of recognition to what the real issue is. The issue is not kneeling. Everybody knows that, and I want to continuously say the issue is social justice, mainly between law enforcement and the social disadvantaged communities where most of the non-fair violent acts take place.
Well, see, what bothers me too is why is everything mutually exclusive? Why is it that you can sit there and say, I support the police, but I don't support police brutality? Two things can both be true and be different, but that's high-level thinking, and I'm a high-level thinker. Mm-hmm. Dumbasses have to have it made real simple. Mm-hmm. You know, if you won't stand up for the national anthem, you're not patriotic. Where'd you make that connection? I mean, holy non sequitur, Batman. Are you kidding me? That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, that's what
whatsoever.
America was all about. I guess so. When the 13 colonies came together and told the British they weren't going to do what they said do anymore, and founded this whole thing, they were unpatriotic.
I told my wife that the number one right that's been given to us as Americans is the right to not agree.
Yeah,
we don't have to goose step like the Nazis. We can sit there and agree to disagree, and you can have your opinion, and I can have my opinion, and maybe the truth is somewhere in between.
And we have these town hall meetings, and they go over and they sound warm and fuzzy about like this is going right now. You know, at least 4 people that are all having a warm and fuzzy meeting, and of 3 different nationalities and 3 different races all in the same room together, and all agree and are able to see and look and discuss and don't totally see things exactly the same way. You know, some person a little more liberal, obviously, based on age or whatever. We're a little bit more conservative, Tom, probably. But the point is that right's right and wrong's wrong, and standing up for right. Why does racism, why does protest, why do these things have to become the focus when we're talking about inappropriate behavior, and then patriotism is thrown in there as a decoy? That's what I look at it as.
It's deflection. It's muddying the water up. It's just trying to confuse the issue.
And then you get a Donald Trump that comes in and hijacks the issue and takes it and runs.
Well, you know what I really wish he'd say? I really wish he'd just get up and say, what really pisses me off is there's a bunch of disrespectful millionaire, and I'm sure he'd come up with some word that I won't use, about those people, that they're not showing enough deference. I used that word uppity last time. That's an old school word. Man, you acted uppity.
Right.
No, I'm asking you to respect me.
Yeah.
I'm asking you to treat me like I would treat you.
Yeah.
Right.
And the thing comes down to, this is the guy. I mean, you asking these guys now, this is the president. You want the Philadelphia Eagles to come to the White House and all of them not want to come. So now it's unpatriotic when you don't go to the White House when you win the championship. You got these things going on. But these are the same guys you said fire the son of a bitches.
Well, did you also notice how Trump's famous for shifting things to make it on him. Mm-hmm. So what he said was, well, since the whole team's not showing up, then apparently you guys don't care enough to honor the flag.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Where
did that come from?
1 + 1 = 17. Thank God we have an orange baboon for a freaking president. Jesus Christ.
Man, orangutan. No, but that's the point. And my last question, and we're gonna start talking about this whole replay thing and what you think about that piece, and in the next segment we're gonna be having a 9-year veteran from the NBA, Eric Strickland, a acquaintance and friend and buddy of mine, and everybody else probably knows of him or whatever, but good guy. He's going to give us a lot of different perspectives on the NBA and officiating and how things are looked at by players and retired players of what good is and what great is, and is it the playoffs, is this, but I guess my last point on all of this is that why is it in America he can make the statement? I mean, that was a disgraceful statement from the White House, for him to make a point like that and a derogatory statement toward the players, call them a profane name, SOB,
right,
and fire them and do this, that, and the other from the White House, and there's nobody. I mean, there's nobody.
Nobody pushes back.
Nobody pushes back on that. I mean, it's and that's what came. All this stuff comes out. We all are socially selling out to maintain a certain quality of life. That's what my conclusion is on all of this, and I'm probably guilty in some form or fashion myself too. And I think as Americans, we become soft and accustomed to the things that we want, and until we're pushed up to the point of our quality of life being endangered and everything's taken away, then that's the only time you're gonna get a change or get any kind of pushback on it. You know, when you go home and you can't get in your house, or they come in and kick the door open and tell you and your wife to get out of bed and come get out here in the yard and we're gonna interrogate you, then it'll be a different angle on it then.
Right.
You know, that's a situation that we're living in. We gotta take a look at this. When we come back from the break, we can ready to dive off into what's going on in the NBA. We're gonna look at replay. We're gonna have Eric Strickland, former NBA player, on, talking regular season versus playoffs, the difference in what's going on. We'll talk about replay, review, good or bad idea. We're going to talk and give our projections. So next 3 segments will be spent with former NBA player, 9-year veteran, Eric Strickland. I actually think it was 12 years he played in the NBA. But we'll have him back on. We come back in 180 seconds with more Lone Star Sports Show. Hey, here we are back here at the Lone Star Sports Show right here on the Lone Star Sports Network. Today's show is brought to you by FastSmallSports.com, located right there in Chicago, Illinois, on the Magnificent Mile right there. Go take a look at FastSmallSports.com and see how they are leading basketball into the 21st century through the vehicle of technology. Just like I promised you guys, we were coming back with 9-year veteran Eric Strickland in the NBA with roughly 4 or 5 teams. We're going to talk about those teams, talk about some of the things that are going on. Eric, do we have you patched in? You there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good deal, man. Appreciate you coming on. You've been doing a lot. One of the things I appreciate as an NBA, former NBA player, retired NBA player, you have not disconnected yourself from the community that you came from, and not necessarily, I mean that in a generic form, of the fact that obviously you didn't grow up in Dallas, but you've stayed here and been a part of of everything that's right with the community. So we want to say,
Well, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I actually love Dallas. My wife and I both love Dallas, and it's been like a second home to me. The organization has been wonderful, not only as a player but as someone who worked with the organization for 3 years after retiring. So yeah, we just absolutely love Dallas.
Okay, well, good. We're glad to have you, man, right here. You know, one of our slogans is all things sports, all things Texas, and we sit right here in North Texas, DFW. And so glad that you to take, 20, 30 minutes of your time this evening and visit what's going on. But I guess one of the things is that, you and I have had plenty of conversation. What do you think when you're watching today's NBA versus the NBA 15 years ago?
Well, the thing about the NBA game today, it has transformed a lot. Mm-hmm. Back then, we had, a center-dominated game, mm-hmm. where, you had the Patrick Ewings, the Akeem Olajuwons. Mm-hmm. Every team had one, mm-hmm. For the most part, one or two, mm-hmm. Ones that can get buckets. And, whether it was in the East or it was in the West, from Shaquille O'Neal down in Orlando at that time, very strong, and to the Davis boys. And then, you go out West and, you had the Malones and then the David Robinsons and the likes of them. And so, it was more of a sets game, whereas now it's more of a free flow. It's more of a running. It's more of a stretch four. It's more of a open court, a style of game. And a lot of that happened with the rule implementation of freedom of movement. They wanted a little bit more scoring. The intensity of the game back then, it was very physical. You're looking at games in the 80s, a 90 to 88, type of game that the Knicks and the Pacers and, Detroit and all of those defensive teams. And it's very similar to what they did in football, where they wanted to limit the ability of the defense to be successful, and to allow more of a scoring
offensive
advantage,
right.
Game.
You came into the league as a rookie in what year?
1996. It was a great class, actually. It was a real strong class. That was Kobe Bryant, Sharif Abdul-Rahim, Antoine Walker, Steve Nash. It was a pretty strong class.
Good class, right?
Yeah.
Good class. Probably in that first round, there may be 2 or 3 Hall of Famers in that group.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. That's for sure. When at the break or when you first came on, I thought Tom asked a question, and for a lot of people don't know that you spent those number of years, 9-10 years in the NBA, and then stayed on and with the Mavericks in a coaching capacity or in an administrative capacity.
In the front office capacity.
Okay, good for you. And so after you got done with your 12 years of NBA affiliation as a player and in the front office, you started making your way around in business, and you found your way back to the court. Well, I guess it was about 5-6 years ago with officiating.
Yeah, about 5 or 6 years. I was coaching in college. I was at a Division II down in New Mexico, and unfortunately, there was some. It was a good thing. It was 2 good things that happened. One, my wife and I reconnected after being friends of 16 years, and then shortly after that, her sister had an illness that kicked in, and so it was best for me to leave coaching at that point to come home and to run the business and make sure that she would be able to have that time with her sister. And so that's kind of how I found my way back into refereeing.
Okay.
And I absolutely love it.
I didn't realize that. So you were at Eastern New Mexico or Western New Mexico? Those are 2 division schools.
No, I was at
Oh, I know exactly where.
New Mexico Highlands.
Highlands, right.
I was at Highlands.
Right. Yeah. Tony Benford's son worked over there for a while too. Yeah, very familiar with that. Yeah, with the Highland Division II program. That I forgot about. I didn't know about them, but forgot about them. Thinking about Eastern New Mexico, right there in Port Tallis, and I think Western New Mexico is obviously on the other side, and the Highlands, I guess, is located pretty close to Albuquerque, isn't it? Just north of Albuquerque.
Yeah, north of Albuquerque, kind of in between there and Denver, 4 hours, maybe 3-4 hours from Denver.
In a place called Las Vegas, New Mexico.
Las Vegas.
That's correct.
I think Coach Joe Harge tricked me. He's like, Rick, I've got some Division I players. Yeah, where you need some help at, Coach? We're going to be in Vegas. Word? Yeah, Vegas.
I'm in.
Hey,
no, that's not that one.
you can be tricked. I'm tired driving, and saw a sign that said I was in Albuquerque, probably 3-4 o'clock in the morning. Had been doing some camp stuff and I can't remember exactly the scenario. I don't want to burn a bunch of time, but I saw the sign and said Las Vegas. 60 miles or something. My eyes lit up like, well, come to find out, it was the same trick they pulled on you, Coach. It worked on me too. So, when you see that word Las Vegas is so strong. When you see Las Vegas, it means Las Vegas. There's also a Las Vegas, New Mexico, right? So I thought that's where you guys.
I thought there was some type of
connection or something.
I thought I was going back to the future.
Right.
I thought it was some new time warp that can just ship me from here to there that quick.
Right. Eric, you should have known better. You should have known better.
and that place, Las Vegas, New Mexico, would make you think you might be in somewhere between time zones too, out there, flat desert. It's a different animal out there now.
Hey, Eric, I had a couple questions, if you don't mind me asking.
Sure.
How much do you think the hands-off, the whatever you said, the impeding progress, what was the phrase used? The freedom of movement rule, right? How much you literally think that changed the game? Because the second part of my question is, do you think that a current player like Steph Curry could be as successful 20 years ago? And then what are your thoughts about Trae Young? Because I got to be honest with you, I saw a lot of he's a great scorer, of course, but don't guard a soul, skinny and weak. And, a guy like him maybe in today's NBA might be okay. What do you think would have happened with those two 20 years ago? Would they have got beaten up?
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about it is Stephen Curry thrives in this environment because
you can't touch him. You can't touch him.
You can't touch him.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas, a Derek Harper or even myself, somebody that can get into him, you're not moving like that. And that's why his dad was so successful, because he could shoot. Now Steph would still be successful. Don't get it wrong. He handles the ball very well in a pick and roll environment. It would depend on team. It would depend on the team he was on, as to the success that he would have had. And so his ability to shoot the ball, his ability to space the floor, which it was very much a space and rotate and kick, can drive and kick type of game. He still would have been very successful, but not at the level that he is now.
A different role, right?
Where do you see Trae Young going in the draft this year? You got any thoughts?
Coach, I ain't no Trae Young. You know Trae Young?
I think it'll be in the top 7.
Be okay.
Okay. Yep.
I just hope my Bulls don't take him. I just hope my Bulls don't take him. It's
gonna be the necessity. It's gonna be necessity
draft
of the team and what they need.
Right.
Some of them are gonna have guys that they maybe have given up on. Maybe they just don't see that they're gonna be able to meet what their team's flow is. But I don't know where that would be, but I could tell a Phoenix could use a good guard like that. Their style of play. It didn't work out with a couple of them that they brought in, but there's some teams that could use it. A good shooting, scoring type of guard. But he's going to be I think he's going to struggle early as well. But he's very much similar to Steph Curry in his style of play. Very similar.
And he's farther along than Steph Curry was at the same time.
Oh yeah. All things equal, right? We weren't talking about Steph Curry at 19 being what he is right now.
But and Steph Curry hadn't accomplished what Trae Young had accomplished at the same time. So that's an interesting point. And shooting is going to always translate. They call it basketball for a reason. The ball needs to go in the basket, And if you can shoot the basketball, there's going to be a place for you. But I totally agree. And as we're going to open up a little bit of a can of worms here, and we're going to come back and address the worms when we come back from break. But this whole replay review, good idea, bad idea thing. Have you heard much about it? What do you think? How do you hear that? And being an official and being a player, we're going to look at both sides of that. We come back, you're going to get more of the Lone Star Sports Show right here on the Lone Star Sports Network. Tom Inman, Alan Branch, Lady Life, and my main man, Ani the Prince, keeping us between the lines right there in the middle of the technology side of this whole process. More Lone Star Sports Show when we continue. This particular segment was brought to you by the Lone Star Top 100 Camp. Lone Star Top 100 Camp is an NCAA certified event, will take place July the 11th and 12th. Traditionally, it's had between 40 and 100 Division I coaches in attendance. Go take a look and see if your invitation or possible approval for the Lone Star Top 100 Camp is available. Back in 180 seconds with more Lone Star Sports Show, talking NBA basketball. Hey, here we are back here at the Lone Star Sports Show on the Lone Star Sports Network. Alan Branch, Tom Inman, Lady Life, Ani the Prince, and special guest Eric Strickland, 9-year NBA veteran, 3-year front office guy with the Mavericks, roughly 12 years of his life and career given to the game that we love to watch and follow and find. Right now we're sitting here in the middle of the NBA Finals, looking at what's going on and where the situation and all the things that are coming about and being discussed. Got another very interesting tangent I'm gonna go off on. It was what we talked about in the first half of the show. How would you have felt? And I don't think you have any reason not to be able to voice deal. You know, I'm not gonna put you in a tough situation, Eric. How would you think you felt as a professional athlete about the ability to express your like or dislike or your concern for a social issue speaking of Colin Kaepernick take a knee and where we are in that whole NFL piece now, how does a professional athlete, what is he looking at and thinking, and looking at something like that?
You know, I think it's a tough balance. I think back in our time, it was kind of taboo. It was kind of, you know, something that we wanted to be a part of community, but we didn't feel that we wanted to,
In danger, cross the line,
in danger and it was a little bit easier for us to do it back then because you were able to have a little bit better civil discourse. It's like now things have become so partisan, not just in politics, but just in idealism. And, you know, look, if I think one way, you know, either you think my way or
you're bad.
You're an idiot.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Or, you know what I'm saying? It's you know, I've always been an objectionable person. I'm able to kind of listen and say, you know what, I understand your point. I understand your side of view, but here's mine. You know what I mean? And we can kind of meet somewhere in the middle. Or, you know, look, we can agree to disagree. And so I think it was a little taboo. I think the ones in the league at that time that would kind of be on the fringe type of guys was like Charles Barkley. You know, he was one of those type of guys. Yeah, you know, that would kind of be on the fringe with his thoughts and ideas in certain situations. But now, you know, the platform has become such a place to where you can weigh in on the issues. And, you know, in weighing in, there's going to be a lot of people that disagree. And there's going to be a lot of people that hate you because of it. And social media has affected that into the level that we didn't have that. Because then maybe your judgment and maybe your thoughts in the community that you lived maintained and stayed local. Unless an ESPN picked it up or caught it on the wire or whatever the case may be, and then it may go national. But it took stuff like that in order for it to become national like that, where social media tweet can, you know, nationally and internationally touch millions, you know, just at the touch of a button.
That's right. It's definitely a different world. I mean, and, you know, we feel like it's redundant. We talk about social media and the power of it, but, you know, you guys didn't have the ability in the year 2000 to retweet something and roughly have, you know, 100,000, 3 million, 400,000 followers. I imagine the average NBA player has somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000 plus followers, which, I mean, that's a lot of power. And some of your higher end guys are in the million range. So, I mean, that didn't even exist, and it's a different deal. So now here we are now. You know, we stop and say, okay, what's the right way to go about all of this, and, you know, what do we do with it? And that's not a question to be answered tonight, but that's a question I think that's on the table, is how is this managed and how is this dealt with. But so apologize for going off on the tangent. I think one of the interesting things is that, and a lot of referees are ex-players, but there are not a lot of referees officials to my knowledge, and you feel free, you or Tom, either one, to correct me, but how many guys play at the level that Eric Strickland played at and then come back and work their way through the officiating process and making it to the collegiate level, and he'll be at NBA PA camp and was going on that deal.
I'll speak on that one. You're the only one I've ever known.
Yeah.
And be honest with you, Eric, I know I always gave you a bunch of crap because I give all refs a bunch of crap, but I've always thought you did a great job. And I thought it showed a lot of humility on your part to get back to a game at a level way below where you were involved, and it says a lot about your decency. You always had a good temperament on the court, and I appreciate that. I really do. I might not have showed it on Tuesday and Friday night, but this Tuesday night I'll show it.
This might be the friendliest Eric Strickland, Tom Emmon encounter we ever had, right, on the sports show. But so I mean, what you know, at this stage and being where you are now, what got you to that point to consider this?
Well, I've always been a grinder. And so a lot of people don't know that I played professional baseball out of high school. I was drafted by the Florida Marlins.
Didn't know that.
And so it's a very humbling experience in playing in the minor leagues. And that grind, being not drafted, and, that grind. Always, individuals saying you can't do this, or you're not able to do that, or you're too small to do that. So I've never been afraid of the grind. I think that's why a lot of people now, there are three. I think there are three. There's one long time ago in the 70s, early 80s. I can't remember who that was. Then there's now there's Hayward Workman, who played in Indiana. And then there's oh gosh, there's one other, and he's been there for a long time.
So when we
good NBA player, huh?
When we go to Charlottesville next week, there will be what, about 30 or 40 of you guys there?
Yeah, there'll be a lot of us, and that's what's all. I mean, no, there'll probably be about 40.
About 40 referees there, and you'll be the only one that's a former NBA player, and you'll probably be the only guy. Well, obviously, be the only guy that's been there as a coach in their coaching mentoring program that they do. As a coach, well, I saw you there about 4 years ago, and now you're returning as a referee. So, I guess it does point toward the grind. Well, give me a little feedback on this piece right here. Replay/review, good idea, bad idea. We'll just start right there on it, and we'll chop it up and see where we go.
I don't like it. I like it in understanding for the ways that it's been used. The critical aspects of the game is the last 2 minutes of a game or a half, in that, a quick judgment play, maybe you didn't have the right angle to see it, and to be able to review that if there's any question or doubt, so that you don't take the possession away. But the way that it was used in this last, where they took an opportunity to view a restricted area play to make sure that the individual's feet was out of the restricted area.
And they took the liberty to go ahead
and use it to change the call is not. I don't think it's correct. Now, to be honest and to be personal, as a referee viewing the play, in this specific instance, where you had there was discussion about it with the replay desk, in New York, and then that individual stated that he thought it was a good call. Me as a referee, I too, by rule, thought it was a good call. The individual was 2 feet on the ground before he.
Because the rule is different in the NBA than it is for college, right? The charge rule.
He was in legal guard position for his upward movement. In that position, he didn't go under him. You can slide obliquely, which he did, and there you go. Obvious charge. Now, here's the problem. That's where NBA judgment sometimes gets into play, because here you have a situation where, okay, they're down, they're down 2, so it's a close call. It's 50-50. Let's go with a block because it's at home. That's the only way I could see that come into play. Let them shoot the free throws and then let them win. Let's not determine this game. Sometimes that stuff gets thrown in, and that's why. And that goes back to what Coach Inman was talking about. Top of the line players, because you saw it in that last game where they popped Tyronn Lue for a technical foul.
For barely saying a word.
Quietest,
mild-mannered guy. Mild-mannered.
Yes,
in the
guy
league.
on the bench. You pop him, and then on the other end, Draymond Green's all in your freaking face, yelling, cursing you out, and you don't pop him. That's the stuff that gets me.
Yeah.
Hey, Eric, can I interrupt you for a second and ask a quick question? I made a note to myself that I absolutely hate the 2-minute report. My note was the 2-minute report is a freaking joke. And I spent 30 years coaching in high school basketball, and I've always emphasized that the third possession and the 11th possession and the 19th possession and the 42nd possession matter just as much as the last 4. How on earth?
I agree.
How on earth do they? I mean, if you don't care about the first 46, why do you care about the last 2? And then the last thing is they whitewashed that thing. Did you see the 2-minute report of the first game? I don't know if they were watching the same game as us. Jesus Christ, man, give me a break.
No.
Yeah.
You know, and
it's like internal affairs with the police. Are you really going to get a true answer when the police are interpreting the police?
That's the thing that gives me pause. You know, they are very stringent about that. You know, in video and breaking down. But I would like to see the conversations that they have in some of those games.
Yeah. As we get ready,
you know, how is that foul on LeBron? Now, and I'm not partisan. Even though I went to college with Ron Lou and we were college teammates, I'm really not.
I forgot about that. Yeah, sure is.
Yeah, you know, I'm you know, LeBron James catches the ball on the break. He gets undercut by one player, hits him from the top. The other player goes up under him, and he falls out of bounds, and you don't call a foul. I'm like, I mean, those are the ones you got to get, you know.
But Eric, he's big and strong, and now, damn it, can't he take that contact? Come on, Eric.
Right.
We running a break. Obviously, we were being a little sarcastic there, and that's what, believe it or not, there are a lot of people out there throwing that philosophy around because it's old Shaq thing. But he's bigger than everybody else, so it's okay to foul him, you know. But we're going to come back from the break. Today's show is brought to you by FastSmallSports.com. Come back and talk a little bit about home court advantage, what Eric Strickland thought about playing on the road and playing at home in the 4 or 5 NBA teams that he played at, and how much of an advantage was it? What's the travel all about? And then how does this all come about where we are in the NBA Finals and how this thing is going to look when it's all said and done as we get ready to go into game 3 tomorrow. And so that's where we are right now. All things sports, all things Texas. Back in 140 seconds with more Lone Star Sports Show. Right back. Hey, here we are back. Lone Star Sports Show, all things sports, all things Texas, right here on the Lone Star Sports Network. Y'all hit subscribe right now, YouTube, as we continue to move along. We're going to be bringing back some of our other social media entities with a little bit more technology to increase our success and increase the amount of exposure.
So with that, the one thing is, I'll say the most tremendous advantage that we had was when we were in Boston, where we had, even though we were the number 3 seed, only because we actually had the second best record to New Jersey, but we were the 3 seed, and we ended up having home court advantage. So even though Philly was the 2 seed because they won the Atlantic, we still had home court advantage, and that's what helped us to get into the conference finals.
Yeah, you played in the Eastern Conference Finals that year, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we actually called the place the Jungle, and it was raucous. I mean, the intensity was phenomenal. Whenever you did something and you were scrappy, you just fought a little bit harder, and it was just something to have that energy in the building that helped you to press through, even when you know that there's a game of runs. And when you're on the road, you don't have that. All you have is yourself. So really, you go on the road just hoping to have an opportunity at the end of the game to execute and win it. You're not expecting to go in and blow people out. You're going to play your butt off. You're going to play hard, but you're just hoping to be there with an opportunity at the end to win it. And so that's the difference. Like, for example, Atlanta was, when Atlanta's playing the New York Knicks, that's not a home court advantage for the Atlanta Hawks. That's a home court advantage for the Knicks. Whenever we went in, we had more Knicks fans when I played with the Knicks than than Atlanta fans had. So it was kind of crazy. So it just depends on where you are and what type of fan base that you're working with, and you could tell it was very tremendous. Like even with Sacramento, when they were making their runs back in the day, it was a tremendous advantage.
And so it's the fan and the atmosphere you think is the biggest part. The travel is not the whole biggest piece. And Tom has a question for you. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, Eric, I had a question. I was talking to a friend of mine a while back, and we were talking about young guys don't win in the playoffs, old guys win. The old Wilbon story. Him and Kornheiser on Pardon the Interruption, right? And so we started talking about how much of that do you think factors into the fact that when a guy's in his first 4 years, he's between 19 and 23 years old, more than likely he's single, he's got more money than he knows what to do with, and he's got a crap load of time on the road. And a guy who gets to his 5th year, maybe he's a little more likely to be married, maybe he's a little more likely to settle down. And my question is, how much of the role players playing poorly on the road in the playoffs do you think is a function of that part, not sleeping in your bed, too much free time, too many distractions, as opposed to just, rhythms you're not used to?
Yeah, that's a great point, Coach Inman. It takes a few years to figure it out. My rookie year coming in, I mean, you're excited, you're feisty. You know what I mean? It's wherever you are, you're trying to go out and get it cracking. You know what I mean?
Right.
You come into hotels and they give you your rooming list, and you see names on there like Spike Lee and Denzel Washington, and you're like, wait, what's going on? And you realize that veterans have been there before. They understand that their phones are going to be blowing up, if they have their names on their rooming list. I mean, because they know where you are, they know where you stay.
Well, it's funny. I always heard
and things like that. Go ahead.
No,
ahead.
Please. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, please, Eric.
Yeah, it's things like that veterans understand after being around, how to move around. We get into the room, we may get with a friend of ours, go have a dinner, have a meal, and you may have a friend that flew in from out of town, whereas the younger players, they want to go out and see what's happening.
Right.
And then, not that we didn't do that as older players too, but we knew how, and we knew when.
You knew how to manage it, right?
When it's time to, it's good work. We knew how to manage it. We knew when we could do it, when we couldn't, how important the game was. Okay, now we need to chill out. We need to be focused. This is an important game. You knew that, and I think that's what the younger players, and I think that's what you saw in how Cleveland was able to overcome in a Game 7 against a very good. And they're going to be
young
very
Celtic
good.
Team.
Boston. Oh, yeah. They're going to be phenomenal. So how they were able to pull that out, and that made the difference.
Well, I've always heard the famous story about Tracy McGrady. They said when McGrady got in the pros, after about 2 years, he got to the point where he told his teammates, don't ever call me on the phone when we go on the road. I'm going to go to my room. I'm taking a shower. I'm eating a steak, and I'm sleeping. Leave me alone. And I think that was like, I mean, maybe a few other things I'm leaving out, but we'll leave it out for right now. But T-Mac wanted his own thing. He didn't go out club and he didn't do that. And I think he's always sent a good message or set a good tone for his teammates. You know, in fact, I can't remember who it was. It was maybe it might have been Allen Iverson when he went to Denver. There was somebody who went to Denver, and they were partners. They were teammates with Chauncey Billups and somebody else. And they basically said, we're going to teach you how to be a pro. And you're going to go eat dinner with us every night. You're not going clubbing. You're not doing none of this young guy stuff. I wish I could remember offhand who that person was, but I think there's something to be said for the mature veterans teaching the young guys how to handle it. Because I can't imagine being 20 years old, having millions of dollars in the bank, and having all damn day off, and having everyone want a piece of me. I'm not sure I'd handle that.
Oh yeah.
Well.
Well, I mean that's
it's not easy.
Not an easy feat, and young guys are getting the NBA's. I think it's getting a little younger. I don't know. I think the NBA is younger now than it was when you were in the NBA. What do you think?
I agree.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And the money is phenomenal.
Right.
At times it make me want to go back and get me a 10-day.
Yeah.
You know how much they giving that money away.
Tell you a story about Joe Klein. This was probably right about the time you were playing. Joe Klein was able to get a contractual situation where he became a member of a team for roughly about 72 hours, took the physical, passed the physical, and retired just to facilitate a trade and got access to a group gobble money. And see, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with those kind of.
Oh yeah, Dallas did that with Van Horn, Keith Van Horn.
Okay, yeah.
They brought him in to facilitate a trade up to New Jersey and gave him $3 million.
Right.
And I was quite mad at Mark. I said, Mark, I would have came out of retirement to get that. If you wanted to do that, you could have just told me. I would have went up. I would have went up there for a few months and get on the treadmill.
Yeah, he could have put that out to bid. Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, sitting here looking at it, it's what everybody obviously wants to hear from somebody like yourself. We analyze it, break it down. We have our thoughts. Regular season versus playoffs. What makes a player great versus being good? We got some MVP stuff we're going to throw around. Obviously, you played in the playoffs. You played in the Eastern Conference Finals championship series, so you know the intensity of playoff basketball going through that process. How much different is it in playoffs versus regular season situations? I know you have your rivalries where it's intense. Go ahead.
No, it's significantly different. I mean, you just think of it like, you know, a marathon race. So in the regular season, it's like a marathon, but in the playoffs, it's like a sprint or a relay race.
Intense.
And in that, it's very intense and it's in the moment. But the difference in that part is you've got to make constant adjustments, not just in game, but after games. You've got to make tweaks to how you're going to run your pick and roll, how you're going to defend the pick and rolls, or how you're going to defend specific sets that they had success with. And you've got 4 to 7 games that you're playing the same team with the same scouting report, and you know exactly what they're going to run and how they're going to run it.
Right. Familiarity is everything.
Do a better job at stopping.
That's the
difference. Yeah, that's the difference. I mean, you're going to know that team front and back, and there's nothing that's not going to surprise you. It's a matter of who's going to do it and do it better.
Here's your last question for tonight, Eric, and we're about to go in about 2 minutes. And they're waving their fingers and saying we probably have a little less than a minute.
I want 30 seconds before you get off.
What? you be answering to that. But hey, here's the quick one for you. Which one demonstrates greatness as a player? Championships or stats?
I like championships.
Okay.
And I just like the ability for individuals to produce and to win and to help their team to be better to win. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Well, man, I don't want to kill any more of your evening, and I know it's a sacrifice for you to come and take out about 40 minutes of your time, but been a blessing. This thing lives on YouTube, Lone Star Sports Network, on and on. Go out and hit the retweets and get a lot of people that want to care about what you say, and go on and look. All of you guys hit subscribe and you go take a look at it. It doesn't cost a dime. Just let you know what's going on in the world of sports in Texas, from the high school level to the NBA level or to any professional level. So that's what's going on. We had 9-year veteran, 3-year front office, Eric Strickland, on with us tonight. We appreciate him being here, man. Good luck in your career. Look forward to seeing you. I'll be watching you real close there in Charlottesville and seeing how things are coming. And hopefully we get a chance to get a cup of coffee or dinner or something together. We'll act like veterans. We won't act like rookies. Let's
do it. Let's do it.
All right, sounds good, man. Thank you so much. Hey, you guys right here on the Lone Star Sports Show. We get ready to tune out and come back into what we call getting into the paint for our last segment. We're going to give in and chime in and talk. Thank Eric Strickland for coming on, back in about 80 or 90 seconds with more Lone Star Sports Show. Giving it to you like it is. All things sports, all things Texas. This particular segment was brought to you by Harlem Hotels. Harlem Hotels, put your money where you sleep. Investment and development company right there in the Bayou City. Take a look at .com, harlemhotel.com, and take a listen to what we have for you right now. Back in 180 seconds. Hey, here we are back here at the Lone Star Sports Show, right down in the paint of my main man, Under You Money, the Prince, often likes to say, let's play above the rim. Above the rim, we're going to have an opportunity to finish and get it all done. You got Tom Inman, Alan Branch, Lady Life, and obviously the Prince, Under You Money, breaking it down right here, middle of it. Lucky to have a guest like Eric Strickland on, talking. Thought it was a lot of insight there. It's one of those ones you kind of want to go back and listen to again. You know, I think it's been a good night, but it comes down to tomorrow's big night.
Yeah.
Going to Cleveland.
Man, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could. We've all talked about how we thought the games would play out, and I said I thought if there was going to be a game Cleveland would, it'd be Game 3. Well, I mean, Game 1, LeBron puts a masterpiece out there, and J.R. Smith is just an idiot. Then Game 2, you know, LeBron puts pretty much another masterpiece. About that one, boy. Yeah. And again, his teammates suck. Let's be honest; they're just not. They're not final quality players. And I don't know what he could do more in Game 3.
And I totally agree to some extent what the players are, but this is what I'll throw in. It might be kind of irrelevant. It might not even make sense for me to make this statement, and maybe I'm doing a little brun bash, and I really like the young man a lot. You know, as a human being, I think he's a hell of a player. He's my 4th all-time greatest player of all time on the list. But the thing I have is LeBron influences and picks his own groceries of who he plays with.
So he can't complain.
I don't want to hear that. Those are the guys that you picked that you felt like he has so much input. Go ahead.
When was the last time that Michael Jordan called Jerry Krause and said, I don't want Scottie Pippen being on my team anymore? Come on, man. Jerry would have said, shut up and go be a player. I'm a general manager.
Yeah, I'm writing the checks around
here.
And
I remember specifically last year, JR wanted $6 million. The team laughed and said, we'll offer you $3 million. He walked. Bron got involved, got him $7.5 million. And from what I hear, he spent a lot of. I mean, I'll be careful here. I understand that he hasn't spent a whole lot of time this year being very serious about being a better basketball player, but he spent a lot of time doing other things.
Well, I
and
mean,
making $7.5 million. Dude, that dude's stealing money. Yeah. Well, what other two guard in the league is averaging 7.8 points a game and can't guard nobody? Who?
You know, and I think you think he's the worst defensive. Professor, I would agree with everything you said.
Well, Korver's worse than him.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I get that, right? Oh, by the way, I want to give you a compliment. You were right about Steph Curry. I underestimated his playmaking ability. I look at him as a shooter, like a catch-and-shoot guy like Clay. You got me on this one.
Yeah,
You're right about this one. He makes too much stuff happen for other people.
Right. No,
JR makes $12 million a year, actually.
12?
Yes.
Which is about 9.5 more than he did. Oh, that's a joke.
Right.
$12 million.
Yeah.
How long is his contract, Lenny?
It goes till 2020. So he actually makes $13 million this year. Then next year he makes $14 million. And then his last season, he makes $15 million.
Wait, I'm going to say something I've said once. I think I maybe said it more than once. I'm convinced that LeBron is so dead set on sticking it in Dan Gilbert's ear financially that he's taking on crappy players. I mean, if you want to stick it to Dan Gilbert, get a better player and get him overpaid. Not Tristan Thompson and J.R. Smith and freaking George Hill. I mean, they're all good pros. Don't get me wrong. And I liked what Steph Curry said after Game 1. He came out and said, "Look, don't disrespect the guys. They're NBA players." And I know he's trying just to diffuse the bomb. Yeah. But as NBA players go, they're very, very run of the mill. They're very pedestrian.
I mean, I think in the NBA you have A players, B players, C players, and then the D that bounces back and forth and bounces around.
G League guys, right? And you got a bunch of B's on that team.
Right.
You got a bunch of B players on that team. You don't have enough A's.
Yeah. No, you don't have. I mean, I think the reason I can't take being an A, even though he's a tremendous defensive liability, the reason that I don't kill Kevin Love carried teams. You know, at 20, he's a 20-10 guy in the NBA. If you're a 20-10 guy in the NBA, you know, you're not a C player or a B player.
Right.
You might be an A- player or a B+ player, but you're not a lower grade. How many dudes do you know they average 20 and 10 in the NBA for as long as he has?
Not many, and you know it's so hard for me because Kevin, I'm sure you hate me, but I don't like you. I just don't like him. I just don't like to watch him play. I think he's soft. I made a joke one time. I said, you know what they call the stretch four back in Chicago in the 80s?
Soft.
A candy ass.
Yeah, right. But that's the difference in it. You know, Eric and I were talking the other day and, you know, just visiting. See, Branch, they just play way more space now. You know, way more space where, you know, you've got to stretch this and a trail that. You're playing in an empty post situation.
5 outs all over the place.
5 outs all over the place. I mean, you know, y'all don't even do that at the high school level, you know.
I'm making somebody post up.
Yeah.
One, maybe even two, but I'm always posting somebody up.
Right. But that's just where it is. So it's just so much a versatile game, and they're playing in so much space that all I'm really trying to say is, in today's game, you can be a candy ass and still get away with it.
You can be a pretty boy. Hey, when was the last time you saw Kurt Rambis take that clothesline on? I was watching the 3-part series of the Lakers Celtics. Remember that when I don't remember what year it was, but basically Bird called his teammates a bunch of candy butts, and who was it? Was McHale that clotheslined Rambis? Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That would have get you thrown out of the league for 8 games today. That got Rambis 2 free throws. That's all I got was get your ass up and make some free throws.
Right.
And I hate to sound like the grumpy old guy, but I just like.
Well, there's nothing wrong with sounding like the grumpy old guy as long as you can justify it.
Well, and I mean, like I made a mistake 25, 30 years ago. I had Reggie Miller. I said Reggie Miller's going to get mauled in the NBA. Mm-hmm. Well, what I underestimated is Reggie Miller. I've never seen a guy move without the ball as well as him in my life, and he would run people off screens like a pinball machine. And he'd beat you up. So, yes, he maybe only weighed 180 pounds, and yes, the gap between his teeth was wider than his shoulders. Mm-hmm. However, he got away with it, right? Well, so 25 years later, when Curry came out, I knew I made a mistake on Miller. So I said, well, you know, he might be okay. Mm-hmm. But if you put him back in 1988, think about Derek Harper, Mark Jackson, Chauncey Billups, those great big 6'3", 225-pound guards that they would let you steer them with their arm.
Yeah.
Now you can't touch them.
Yeah, you can't touch them anymore.
Different game.
It's just a different game. You know, it's just a different game. I mean, I often look at the fact that you and I both played. I don't know what it was like in Chicago, but you and I both played without the 3-point line.
Two things. There was no 3-point line, and there were two. And we used to always say, I went to a fist fight and a basketball game broke out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how we played.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was the nature of it. There was no crossing the lane without getting a chuck or a bump or whatever. You paid the cross or you had to pay the toll to anytime they went across there, and that was just an acceptable way. So, I mean, you know, I really don't want to be grumpy old man. I'm the kind of guy that looks at, okay, this is what it is.
Right.
That's what I get paid to do.
It's going where it's going.
Yeah, it's going where it's going, and it is where it is. The destination stops where it stops. They pay me to find guys that are going to be successful doing what is the environment that we're in now.
Right, right.
Long, athletic guys with good feet and good hips that can pass, dribble, and shoot, and make good decisions, and got some toughness, some athleticism about them. And then this is the part I don't like. If you want to throw something, if I want to sound like grumpy old man, what about grumpy old man with so many of these guys with these bad IQs? Or with
Oh, you just took me right back to J.R. Smith.
Yeah, you took me right back. I took myself back to J.R. Smith. That's time and score.
Dude, is there a better time than right freaking now to know the score?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you insinuate so many different things when you don't know the score. You insinuate that you don't care.
You know what my dad used to say to me when I was a little kid? Hey, Tommy, if your mind's somewhere else, take your ass there and keep it company. I need both of you.
Right, exactly. I never heard that one. That's actually a tremendous statement. And that's the deal. But I mean, when you're making the amount of money that he's making, what does it matter?
Am I asking too much for you to know the score? Am I asking too much for you to know what the hell's going on? And
at $14 million a year.
And if you watch LeBron, I really think that J.R. Smith probably has frostbite on his right shoulder from when they sat 2 minutes and 42 seconds and absolutely said nothing, and he was just stink-eyeing him.
No, I like to. Man, what the hell are you doing? That's the move I like.
Well, what I was cracking up over was he's coming off the court and all the backups who don't play were dapping him up. I would have wanted to punch him in his crotch, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
And then of course, LeBron doesn't want to dap him up because LeBron wants to beat his butt. I mean, I'm at a loss.
That was a killer. But here we are now. I mean, you can't. I mean, one thing we talked about this earlier in the playoffs. I think maybe your first show here, show 3 here now for you. We talked about how you plan, how you bounce back. There's always a way to win the game.
Right, right.
But you saw how much, and I thought Eric talked about the energy. I mean, he was really upfront about when they were playing in the Garden. We was with the Celtics.
Right.
There was so much energy there that it kept the intensity up of your team at a high level.
So if you extend that tomorrow night to Cleveland and you say, okay, Cleveland's going to get a burst. They're going to get an emotional bump. So if I'm Steve Kerr, the thing I'm saying is, guys, get through the first 8 to 10 minutes. Just weather the storm. Don't get blown out. We'll be okay. It's a long game. We're good in the third quarter. Because if they don't come out and shoot well, the crowd can't go crazy. You know what I mean? It kind of feeds off itself.
Yeah, and I mean, and the whole deal is, and that's one of the things that's probably maybe one of the most impressive. Two things that impressed me about the Golden State Warriors team is that they get their offense going through the vehicle of their defense.
Yep.
Out in transition, and that then you come chasing. Here starts to become the ball reversal, and when they're playing bad, they don't get down very far.
No.
They're down by 9, 3, and 4 possessions. They could be shooting 14%. And they're still only down by 12 points.
Well, and one thing that I kind of like, and I'm not going to take this as a shot at Ty Lue because everybody knows Ty Lue's not the head coach of that team. LeBron is. LeBron's the best player, the GM, and the head coach. Everyone knows that, okay? And at the end of the day, he doesn't really have the latitude to be able to do some of the things like a Steve Kerr does. When a Steve Kerr decides, I'm going to put JaVale McGee out there. Yeah, JaVale McGee's a knucklehead. But JaVale McGee was a perfect fit because there's no one. JaVale McGee is better than any big on Cleveland's team.
He's a tremendous distraction. I mean, and now you have something else to prepare for, something else to deal with. But here's the deal. And I was talking to another NBA guy. And he pointed something out to me. Alan, and I've been saying it all the time. Everybody wants to talk about the IQ of LeBron. I think he has a tremendously intelligent human being for starters.
Yes, sir.
But LeBron is hard to play with. I used to say the same thing about the point guard Colin Sexton over there. It's hard to play with anybody. And see, there are no sets. Give the ball to LeBron and come down, and whatever he sees he wants to get into, then you got to figure it out. So there's a lot of guessing. Do I go now? Do I do this? What does he want to do?
Well, a lot of my beef against LeBron is he's passive-aggressive. He's the poster child for passive-aggressive behavior. Jordan was aggressive-aggressive. Mm-hmm. He would just tell you point blank, if you do that again, I'm going to whip the crap out of you. Where LeBron wants to be everyone's buddy and make everyone like him, but at the end of the game, he wants to give you the stink eye and play the head games with you. I think it would be tremendously difficult to play with LeBron.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I've heard from a very reliable source, if you will, and I don't throw that around loosely, that that's the problem. That's the reason that they struggle. Now, when they get in a rhythm with him and really understand what it is, with the fact that they run pretty much a setless deal, there's going to be a struggle. So, I mean,
why do you think Kyrie left? Let's be honest. There's only one basketball.
Yeah, there's only one basketball, and I don't feel like he felt he could reach what he want. And we've all been in work environments. It's hard to work in a situation that you're not comfortable, you don't feel good about.
Well, to go back to finish that point about Steve Kerr versus Tyronn Lue, Lue is kind of stuck because he's not going to take LeBron out or anyone LeBron wants out. But Steve Kerr, if he wants to pull Kevin Durant, Kevin will sit down for a few minutes. Steve Kerr doesn't have a problem with that. They let him. Yeah. They let him coach them. Yeah. I'm not sure that the Cleveland Cavaliers, especially LeBron, will let Ty Lue coach them.
You can't do it. So there it is with the Lone Star Sports Show. I think we got a potential sweep on hands.
Yeah, I think it's a five.
We all said we predicted a 4-1 situation, a 5-game series. That's where we are, but I'm moving more toward a sweep. You got it right here from the Lone Star Sports Show. Another conclusion of another 96 minutes of quality content. Today's show was brought to you by FastballSports.com. Harlem Hotels, another one of our commercial people at HarlemHotels.com. You can take a look at what they have going on, putting your money where it sleeps there. These are all our people. We'll be back with you on Basketball Thursday before we get ready to take vacation on next week. And I wouldn't call it a vacation. We'll be at NBA Players Association camp. Tom is going to be maybe in Boston. He'll be traveling all over. Tom's going to be coming for us remotely from some really interesting places over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Minor league baseball games, multiple situations that he's going to be in. He'll be in summer league during that time. But right now we are out. Time has run out of the Lone Star Sports Network. We'll see you on Thursday before we break out of here and get ready to do what it is that we do. Peace, love, and happiness. And maybe we can get this thing into a better situation and a better world to live in through the vehicle of sports.
Thanks for having me, Alan.
Good.